Hello mga bata! Welcome sa ating Sunday School. Nandito tayo ulit upang pag-usapan natin ang naging buhay ni Elijah, kung paano siya sumunod at pinagpala ng Panginoon. Makinig kayong mabuti mga bata! At bago tayo magsimula, tayo ay manalangin. Panginoon Diyos, marami pong salamat sa araw po na binigay niyo sa amin sa panibagong linggo. Nawa Lord na maintindihan po namin ang naging story po ng buhay ni Elijah. Ito po ang aming dalangin sa pangalan ni Jesus. Amen. Sabayan niyo akong kantahin ang Obedience.
King Ahab and the majority of people believe a false god called Baal controlled the weather, not God. 3 years had passed since Elijah had told King Ahab that there will be no rain until God decided to bring it. For 3 years, there had been no rain or dew throughout the land. God then told Elijah, "Go and present yourself to King Ahab, as I am going to send rain." In the meantime, King Ahab had been searching for Elijah. The drought and famine in Samaria was severe and cattle were dying. The king summoned his place administrator, Obadiah, and said, "Let's search all the springs and valleys. Maybe we can find some grass to keep the horses and mules alive." King Ahab went in one direction and Obadiah in the other. Obadiah believed in the Lord God, and when Ahab's wife, Queen Jezebel, had ordered God's prophets to be killed, he had secretly hidden 100 of them into caves and supplied them with food and water. As Obadiah was walking along, searching for water, he suddenly saw Elijah. Obadiah fell to the ground before the prophet of God, asking, "It is really you, Elijah?" "Yes," Elijah replied. "Go tell King Ahab that I am here." Ahab was afraid. "The king has been searching for you everywhere. If I tell Ahab that I have found you, and then you disappear, he will kill me." Elijah promised, "As surely as the God I serve lives, I will present myself to Ahab today." Obadiah went to fetch Ahab, and the two returned to where Elijah was waiting. "Is that you, Elijah, the troublemaker of Israel?" Ahab asked. "It is you who have been causing trouble by worshipping the false god Baal," Elijah replied. "Now summon all the people of Israel to Mount Carmel and bring the 450 prophets of Baal and the 400 prophets of Asherah who eat with Queen Jezebel." So King Ahab sent word throughout all Israel for all the people to assemble on Mount Carmel. The king also told the prophets of false god Baal and Asherah to gather to join them. Everyone set off for Mount Carmel. Elijah addressed the large crowd that had gathered. "How long will you waver between two opinions? Make up your minds. If the Lord is God, follow him. But if Baal is God, follow him." Everyone remained quiet. There are 850 prophets of Baal and Asherah and just one prophet of God. Elijah pointed out, "Get 2 bulls, one for them and one for me. Let them prepare an altar, put wood on it, sacrifice their bull, and place the meat on it. But they must not set fire to their sacrifice. I will prepare my sacrifice in the same way. Let the prophets call on their gods, and I will call on the name of God." The God who answers with fire, he is God. Elijah instructed the prophets of Baal and Asherah to go first as there were more of them. They prepared the sacrifice and then started calling on their gods to set it on fire. They kept pleading and dancing around the altar from morning until noon, but there was no sign of fire. At noon, Elijah began to taunt them. "Shout louder," he said. "Perhaps Baal is deep in thought, or busy, or away traveling." The crowds watched as Elijah mocked the false prophets. "Maybe Baal is sleeping and must be woken up," Elijah yelled. So false prophets started shouting louder and dancing more frantically to their gods. But there was no response. No one answered. No one paid attention. There was no fire. As they became more desperate, they slashed themselves with sword and spear to try and please their God. Midday passed, and they continued their frantic shouting and dancing all afternoon until it was evening. They were exhausted. Elijah then gathered the people together and repaired an altar to God that had been torn down. The altar was made of 12 stones, one for each of the 12 tribes of Israel. Elijah dug a deep trench around the altar. Then he ordered, "Fill 4 large jars with water and pour the water on the offering and on the wood." They did so. "Do it again," Elijah said, and they did it again. "Do it a 3rd time," Elijah ordered, and they did so. The water soaked the altar and filled the trench. At that time of evening sacrifice, Elijah stepped forward and prayed, "Lord God of Israel, let it be known today that you are God, and that I am your servant. Answer me, Lord, so these people will know that you are God, and turning their hearts back to you again." Suddenly, the fire of God fell and burned off the sacrifice, the wood, the stones, the soil, and the water in the trench. The large crowd gasped in fear and amazement. Immediately they fell on their faces and cried, "The Lord, He is God! The Lord, He is God!" Elijah commanded them to seize the false prophets and take them down to the Kishon Valley, where they were put to death.
At hanggang dito na lang muna ang ating lesson, mga bata. Sa susunod na linggo, pag-aaralan ulit natin ang naging kwento or kaduktong ng kwento story ni Elijah. Bago sa ating pagtatapos, meron tayong memory verse. At ito ang ating memory verse. Para naman sa ating pagtatapos, tayo ay manalangin. Panginoong Diyos, marami pong salamat sa naging story po namin sa linggong ito. Nawa Lord na matutunan din po namin kung paano po mag-obey sa inyo, sa aming pamilya at sa ibang tao. Tulungan niyo po kami Lord na magawa po namin ito upang kayo po ay pagpalain niyo po kami. Ito po ang aming dalangin sa pangalan ni Jesus. Amen. Hanggang sa susunod na linggo mga bata, magkita-kita tayo ha. Paalam!